And welcome, everybody, to another brand new episode of Red Maryland Radio, a special Monday edition of Red Maryland Radio here on the Red Maryland Network, coming to you from the Al Davis Studio on the bucolic western shore of Maryland on the banks of the semi-historic Magothy River. You are listening to Maryland's leading conservative talk show, Red Maryland Radio on the Red Maryland Network. I am your host, Brian Griffiths. With me in studio, Greg Klein.
Good to be here.
We got a lot to talk about this week. We're going to talk about the primary election last week, soup to nuts, all the races that mattered, the surprises, the fallout, and more. We're going to talk about one of Pat McDonough's minions, quote, exposing Red Maryland.
We've been exposed. We've been exposed. Our lies have been exposed, and we're going to fess up to everything later on in the show.
And lots more. And, of course, we'll take your call, 760-259-2711.
760-259-2711 if you want to expose us. If you want to debate us, 760-259-2711.
But before we get into that, we got to talk about, obviously, the biggest news story over the course of the past week here in Maryland, which was the tragic shooting down at the Capital-Gazette Headquarters on Thursday afternoon.
Right. Let me do this because we're doing the show on Monday. We didn't do a show last Thursday. We postponed it. This is what we're going to do. We're not going to take a lot of time. You've heard about it. You've read about it. We live in this community. We knew these people. Brian writes for the Capitol. He'll talk about that in a second. I just want to take a minute here to explain to you all, kind of pull the curtain back and why we didn't do the show on Thursday and why we waited till today to do the show. We've got a great show on tap, the post-primary show. We got a lot of fun stuff, a lot of analysis, a lot of snark. We couldn't do that on Thursday night as this story was developing, and we didn't know what was going on, and the details hadn't come out, and we didn't, the who was killed. Of course, now we know all of those tragic details. We've begun mourning these folks. But Thursday night, we didn't know what was going on, so as we were monitoring this, we're like, and we had a discussion, and if we didn't do the show live and we could, record a show and broadcast it later, we might have been able to do that, but we couldn't go on live and do the show and do anything like the show we wanted to. We couldn't come on and talk about that because it was still a developing story, and there were a lot of other outlets that were putting the stuff out there. When people listened to us the next day, we'd have been behind the curve. So there was no way we could do a show. And like I say, we were consumed by what was going on as well.
Right.
So we made the decision to postpone. Tonight's the night we're able to do it, and we've got a great show for you. So I'm sure you all understand why we made the decision we did. I know our friends over at Eye on Annapolis and the Daily Briefing and those guys did their own kind of silent tribute on Friday as well. So, obviously all of us are very affected by this. It's senseless, stupid tragedy that didn't have to happen. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian because this is, if you listened to his show last night, if you didn't, this is obviously more personal for this guy than it is for me.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know any of the people who were killed personally, but even if it's on the periphery, even though I just write for them, every couple of weeks, it's still part of the team. Writing local issues, writing for a local paper that's more community focused is right in kind of my wheelhouse of where I enjoy politics and where, kind of the mission, if you will, for Red Maryland. That's kind of what we're about. And Gerald Fishman was the opinion page editor. So I never met Gerald, but I did, email with him, as far as my columns though, and he never gave me any grief. I'm not entirely certain what his opinions are. I think they were much more to the left of mine, but he certainly let me write what I wanted to write. To the detriment of the annoyance of some, I'm sure. The fact that those guys, not just the writers for the Capitol, the Phil Davises and the other folks and Chase Cooks who went on to report the story, but also all the help that they got from, quite frankly, it was a lot of Capitol alumni, folks like Aaron Cox and
right.
Pam Wood, folks who moved up to the Sun. The fact that they were able to quote, get the damn paper out
right.
is a testament to those guys and a testament to the importance of something like the Capitol and in our community. Obviously, where we kind of go forward from here, there's what the folks at the Capitol, what those reporters do is very, very important, very, very meaningful.
Yeah.
Because of the focus on local news. And as I've written about, if you look back, something I wrote, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago now, talking about the dearth of local news and how, we had concerns at the time that when the Capitol was purchased by the Baltimore Sun Media Group, that, that local focus was going to go away. Unfortunately, that has not done that.
The local media of every kind is shrinking. The nationalization of news is something we talk about and push back on all the time. We have our own take on doing that and filling that space from our own point of view, but the Capitol's important, and local coverage of government, local coverage of elections, local coverage of which is a news hole that's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, is really important, and it's really important for our community, and it's really important for our body politic. There's a lot of stuff that's so much more important than the stuff that makes national headlines and gets squawked about in a million places. And so what these guys do is, and you know what, politically we have different points of view, and the reporters do what reporters do, and the editors have a point of view, and they let guys like Brian write what they want to write and get that position out, and people write letters in, and we debate, and that's what it's supposed to be about. But this was just horrific and completely undeserved, and it's scary that something like this would happen because a reporter told a story about something that's really going on, and he told it truthfully and honestly about a guy who was a real menace. And
yeah, there's a lot of bad that when you start looking at the story, like you said, Greg, when somebody tells the truth and somebody who's mentally disturbed goes off and does this, the national media didn't help, because there were people immediately attributing it to this thing or that thing, or blaming this or that and the other thing.
Yeah, they
and
want
of
to put
course,
it into whatever
box they don't know what they're talking about and didn't understand the scope, and nobody understood the scope. That goes back, Greg, to your point about why we chose not to do the show ultimately last week, because what was being presumed at 6 p.m. was not what was being reported at 9 p.m. I mean, it was kind of a fog of war situation.
And sadly, it didn't fit in any of those boxes, so it's not necessarily getting the play in that big national media that it probably deserves. Other than the angle of journalists being shot, the nature of the victims here, this was a horrific shooting, and it's as horrific as any other shooting where 5 people are gunned down senselessly in cold blood by a maniac who was not unknown.
And let's face it, it could have been a lot worse. Just the fact that, and I don't mean to minimize what happened, because what happened was terrible.
Yeah.
But a lot of people we know,
right?
A lot of people that you folks know, a lot of people who are known in the community have been traipsing through there in the past couple of weeks, candidate interviews, story stuff and stuff like that. So a lot of people could have very well been there when this happened.
Yeah, and that's a huge building, and there's lawyers' offices and doctors' offices and every other kind of office in there. It's not just the newspaper, remote office where they can do that kind of stuff from any building. That just happened to be that office building they were operating out of. So, yeah, it's scary. It's very, very scary.
It's terrible. It sucks. I hope that we don't learn all the wrong lessons from this. And just remember, there are these folks, the reporters, whether you listen to the president, whether you don't listen to the president, whether you think the media sucks, whether you think the media is great, the reporters at papers like the Capitol, local papers, bust their ass.
Yeah, they work hard
for low pay and terrible hours. And
it's not terribly glamorous, and we might disagree with them politically on things. And like I said, I think the reporters call balls and strikes and do the who, what, when, and where. The fact is, there isn't anybody else doing it.
Yeah,
and in an awful lot of places, and here too, there's fewer and fewer people doing it.
Yeah,
and it's something that it's something that should be held up as something we need more of. Local journalism, local news reporting is something we desperately need more of, regardless of your political point of view. and it's been shrinking. That's separate from what happened, this incident, but it drives home, another aspect of that very unsung job that these folks have to deal with now, and it's pretty horrible. And a lot of people reach out to help them. We encourage you to do that.
Definitely.
These are real people who now have to deal with all this, and family members who are grieving, and coworkers who've gone through horrific experiences, and it's going to be a long time. It's definitely a psychic trauma, and I love that the community came together. I love that our law enforcement acted so quickly to put an end to this thing. And they're so close to so many police stations, so that 60-second reaction time, which is so great, is not really that surprising. I mean, they took this guy half a mile up the street to Jennifer Road, and he's going to be there for a while. But,
right.
So our thoughts and prayers. That's why we didn't do a show, and
So what we're going to do now is we are going to take a break, cleanse, reset, and now that we got the serious stuff out of the way, we'll kind of return to normalcy, if you will.
The world needs snark.
Stick with us. You're listening to Red Maryland Radio on the Red Maryland Network.
You can help Red Maryland grow our reach when you visit redmaryland.com and click on the Amazon link and shop as normal. A portion of your purchase will come back to Red Maryland to help us grow. Additionally, you can buy Red Maryland t-shirts, drinkware, and other gear from our Zazzle store at zazzle.com/redmaryland. We want to hear from you. Email us at any time at redmaryland@gmail.com. You can also leave audio feedback on our Red Maryland talkback line at 410-205-4875. We might use your feedback on our programming. You are listening to Maryland's most trusted conservative voice, the Red Maryland Network. Be sure to follow Red Maryland on all of the major social networking sites. You can follow us at Red Maryland on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Google+, Snapchat, and Tumblr to get the latest from Red Maryland. And be sure to follow the home base for all things Red Maryland, redmaryland.com. Celebrating 5 years as Maryland's only network that matters. You're listening to the Red Maryland Network.
Zwoele zomerhits.
Klopvaste actua.
De leukste cadeaus. Donna.
The sound of summer.
We are back. Red Maryland Radio on the Red Maryland Network. I am Brian. He is Greg.
Good to be here.
It is good to be here. So now we're going to talk about the primary last week. You may have heard something about the primary last week.
Well, we've been talking about it, and it happened.
It did happen.
And a lot of stuff happened.
Boy, did a lot of stuff happen.
And we're going to break it down and chat about it and have some fun and talk about how wrong we were. I know I will. I was wrong about some things.
let me put it this way. Let's talk about how right or wrong somebody was. The column that I wrote for the Capitol, encouraging people in Anne Arundel County to vote for people.
Yeah.
Every one of those people I told people to vote for won.
Okay.
Every single one.
You know what? This is what this show is. So there you go.
And the only thing is that Bob O'Shea, who I told people not to vote.
Kingmaker, Brian Griffiths.
Bob O'Shea, the one person I told people not to vote for, also won. Take that for what it's worth.
It only works in one direction. Well, he didn't fly off to Paris at the end. Maybe he just learned his lesson. So,
you know what?
Good for
If
Mr. Shea.
learning has occurred there, and we'll talk more about that race later on when we get to the House races. Let's start with the governor's race. Breaking
was that a thing?
Breaking
who won
news!
that?
Breaking news! Larry Hogan won the Republican primary with 100% of the vote.
Oh, God.
And I have to laugh because
yeah.
people
Like we didn't see this coming a million miles away.
people don't understand sarcasm.
No, they don't.
Because we set that tweet to blow at 8 p.m. right as the polls closed.
Right.
And people just did not. Like some national news person bitched and moaned because they had set some tweet alert and they got that and was talking about how much of a waste of a news alert that was. I mean, some jabron with 30,000 followers is complaining that we declared Larry Hogan the winner of the
right.
of the primary.
The purpose of it, obviously, we were having fun. We like to have fun.
Fun is a good thing to have.
Fun's the best thing to have, is what I've been told. But obviously, he was going to get 100%. He was unopposed, and we got the snark of, well, he was unopposed. Like we did. That's the point.
No shit, Sherlock.
Well, wait till you look at the undervote. I'll calculate. By the way, nobody's calculated it. It's not in the newspaper, which is what we said beforehand. The point that no one even filed, there wasn't a name on the ballot as governor, was a big, big deal. It allowed the governor to get 100% of the vote. He comes out on election night, gives a great speech, essentially the same speech he gave when we were there at his kickoff event. I mean, almost word for word. The speechwriters didn't have to do a whole lot.
Take the night off, boys.
He got on the news right after the polls closed, when they were looking for news, when they were looking for live audio, because they didn't have any results, because they had these couple late polling places in Baltimore City, which, by the way, stick a pin in that, because we're going to have to watch out for that come November.
Oh, yeah.
So they got the news outlets all have an hour of dead time, because they're not going to get any results, because they're not going to start reporting results till 9 o'clock. So the governor perfectly timed, and this is what's so smart about what the governor's campaign does. He gives his speech. He declares victory. He hits on all the points he wants to hit with. Maybe it'll go late into the night, but they have that all ready then to racked up for the 11 o'clock news when it comes on, and he can make an early night out of it. And that's exactly what he did. And, and so our tweeting that is it's kind of it's a joke. It's a fun thing. And it's kind of a, thumb in our nose, or whatever you do with your nose and your thumb. To people who are grousing about the fact that the governor is 100%.
Well, it's also a realization that the Republican Party is united behind their candidate, and the Democrats,
and they are
not so much.
Not so
Hold
much.
that thought.
Not so much. So anyway,
but let's get to the result
Yeah.
of the Democratic primary, where Greg was wildly wrong.
I was. By the way, if you haven't heard Ben Jealous won, I think you probably heard that by now.
Yeah.
But Ben Jealous won. He got just below that 40% threshold.
Now, the irony about the 40% threshold is that in every major media interview, and by the way, Greg was media superstar last week. He was all over.
We did a lot of media.
Last week.
We did a lot of media last week.
And on all his interviews, both on WGMD, on WMAL,
Right.
you said that the key to watch out for is whether Rusher and Baker broke 40%.
Right. I said the 40%. Of course, I had the wrong candidate.
Yeah.
But I said the 40% is a threshold. If they get over that, then they've coalesced the party more than you might have expected. If it's below 35, then it's something else. Rusher and Baker, I think, was a surprisingly weak candidate. Even we overestimated him as a candidate. He's a nice guy, but he was just
well,
terrible.
and I think it's not just that. I think we also overestimated something that we've been talking about for the last 3 years, talking about the Democratic establishment and how the machine isn't what it used to be.
Oh my God!
We
It's
overestimated how much that machine was still powerful, was still existent, because you and I for a couple of weeks said, we both said, the Democratic establishment is going to try to do what they can to drag Baker over the finish line for the win.
4 years ago, that's exactly what they did for Anthony Brown.
Yeah.
And he won in a surprisingly large margin.
Correct.
I mean, Delegate Missouri is probably saying, where the hell were these guys 4 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
She was Ben Jealous before it was cool. And then some, probably. But she didn't get anywhere near that. And, in a three-way race. So I was surprised. And also, I mean, we'll talk about some of the other results, some of the other big-name Democrats that went down in primaries, but the Democratic machine, the Democratic Party of my grandparents, the Democratic Party of William Donald Schaefer, it's dead.
Oh, it's deader than a doornail.
I mean, it's gone. That vaunted machine that we've been fighting against for decades, most of our adult lives, you and I, that machine that Mike Miller said, well, Ehrlich got in, but we're going to beat him and we're going to keep the Republicans down for 50 years. He may still be in office, but that machine is dead. It's completely broken. This is a hardcore, hard left party, plays right at, I mean, in the Hogan campaign, we'll talk about what's happened since then, was ready for it, and they have seeded not just not just the moderate vote, but they've seeded a lot of the Democratic base in Maryland.
Yeah.
Because Maryland's a very Democratic state, but it's not an ultra-liberal state in general elections. We haven't had the realignment we've seen in other states because the demography and because the state Democratic Party's been able to maintain such an ironclad control. You haven't seen a lot of Democrats switch to Republicans. You've started to see it over the years in Western Maryland, Southern Maryland, and some of the suburbs, but you haven't seen that wholesale. And of course, redistricting gave the false impression, the hyper-partisan gerrymandering gave the false impression that the Democrats were stronger and more unified than they actually were.
Yes.
And that it was kind of rotting from the inside, and it's broken now. I mean, it is broken.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this last night. Probably the best thing long term for the Maryland Democratic Party is for Governor Hogan to come in and do something more fair with redistricting.
Yes.
So they have to start being a more competitive party like Virginia's Democratic Party or Pennsylvania's Democratic Party, and actually get a better message and better candidates and work harder to get that general election vote. Because, this machine that was just a monolith for so long, that we as Maryland Republicans banged our head against for so long, is dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny you talk about it that way, because if you think about it, that's kind of what one of the things we set out to do a long time ago.
Yeah.
And we, I
mean, look.
I'm not sure I thought we'd live long enough to see the Democratic machine.
I never thought it. Look, in 1982, and Brian will correct me. I know he's the encyclopedia on this. When Steve Sachs, the good government liberal, was seriously challenging for the governorship.
That was 86.
86. In 86, when he was seriously challenging, I knew it was one of those two.
Yeah, he ran against Schaefer.
They brought Schaefer in. The Muldoons, who ran the machine, brought Schaefer in and convinced Schaefer, who was reluctant to do it.
Who really loved being mayor of Baltimore.
Who loved being mayor of Baltimore. So they convinced him you can do more for Baltimore by being governor. Because they needed a good old boy machine politician to hold back these goo-goo liberals that were starting to take over the party. And they held them, and he won easily.
He got like 80-some% of the vote, if I remember correctly.
He won easily. The Republicans were token opposition, and they held them back for a generation.
Yeah.
Okay? Glendenning was challenged, but he managed to get in. And O'Malley.
They pushed Duncan out of the way.
O'Malley, who was, frankly, a much better, as
hard as this is for
the
you
national audience not going to understand this, but is so much better a politician than any of these guys who ran on the Democratic side for governor this time around. And they pushed him hard, and he beat Ehrlich, who didn't run a very good campaign, and had to deal with all the crap coming out of a George W. Bush administration that was slowly decaying into Barack Obama. But they managed to keep it alive, and wow. It's rotted out. It's completely broken.
And look, we knew it was broken when we saw this clown show that they called a Democratic field go forward. And Greg, you mentioned to me off the air before we started, this Democratic field was so much weaker than we thought it was.
It really was.
Just up and down the board.
We joked about it, but like a lot of things in this campaign, it's like we were waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're waiting. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. This guy's talking about Bernie Sanders' health care that failed in Vermont. I mean, when are the real Democrats going to come out? When are they really going to get their act together? And it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened yet, and it's not looking good. These guys really believe that the people who are running this Democratic Party, who are in charge, the nominees, really believe that a far left agenda, because of their registration advantage, which they overhype in their own minds, which is warped because of their partisan gerrymandering in their minds.
Again, I point out to go along with that point, Greg, and I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's okay.
District 31, my district,
right,
which has not elected a Democrat at all, has not elected any Democrat,
right,
since 2002, still has a Democratic edge in voter registration.
Yeah. Well, I think Anne Arundel County does, which went what, 65% for Governor Hogan last time around?
It might have been more than that.
Yeah.
And it will be probably more than that this time
Probably will
around.
be 70, 75%, depending on how turnout goes. It's still got more registered Democrats than Republicans countywide, I think. So, but that's, I mean, there's a lot of the governor's gone and targeted those folks. But the Democrats still believe they can win the Millers and the Bushes of the world, who are not super far left guys by any stretch of the imagination. They've let this party get away from them.
Yeah, they have.
There's nobody running to rein it in, and those guys can hold on, maybe. Miller will. You can't kill that guy. But Bush, I don't know. He's more comfortable leading if
Bush
he gets reelected.
Bush has drifted further left with his
He's
caucus.
more comfortable leading a more liberal caucus than Mike Miller is.
And by the way, let's think about this for a second.
Yeah.
There's talk. We'll see how real it is.
Right.
But there's talk of Mike Miller having to rely on the Republicans in the Senate to keep his Senate presidency.
Yeah, I mean, that's the talk. See, I still think, look, once bitten, twice shy, man. I've grown up in this state as a Republican. I know how hard it is. There's still a part of me that says these guys know, and we'll talk, and maybe this is a good transition to some of the state Senate races.
I want to finish the statewide stuff before we go to that, but finish your point.
Okay, well, let me say this. That the smart Democrats, and I'm still believing there's some smart Democrats, have written off the governor's race.
We remember Mike Bush was basically washing his hands of that 2 years ago.
Well, no, he was saying they'll screw it up. Republicans always screw it up. We got the advantage, blue wave, blah, blah, blah. And there's still Democrats saying that. I still think the smart Democrats know that if they can hang on to the veto overriding majority in the state Senate, that they can thwart this drive for 5, that they can still run the government. They can stop the governor on redistricting, which long-term preserves their, if not their monopoly, at least some kind of control, and that they can thwart the governor with what he really wants to do. He can't veto anything, and that they can just ramrod a complete restructuring of state government over the governor's head. I think the smart one, and there's a rationale to do that, which is why I don't necessarily buy the idea that Mike Miller's about to be thrown out by his own caucus, because Mike Miller's smart and he's savvy.
He's a survivor.
That's the pitch he's going to make to him. He's like, stick with me. And if we can thwart this drive for 5, we're going to be running the show. And I'll let all your crazy left-wing ideas through, because the governor can veto them, but he ain't going to do them any good.
No, I agree.
So, anyway.
Let's get back to this governor's race, because so many interesting things happened kind of below the top, too. I mean,
right.
Jealous getting 40% of the vote, basically. Nuts. Unprecedented. Nobody expected that. Baker getting less than 30%. Nuts. Showed how weak Baker was. Right. For a lot of the reasons, by the way, that we said Baker was weak all along, talking about his record in education.
But those two guys got 70% of the vote, which is more than I would have thought would have been the case.
Correct. And then Jim Shea, for his $2 billion, got 8.3% of the vote. Which
$2 billion.
Yeah. And that's still not the worst ratio of dollars to votes in this race.
Yeah, but Jim Shea, he started too late. That was his problem. And I think Kevin Kamenetz kind of squeezed out. And when he died, I think there was more of an opening for Shea, and he made his move too late. Jim Shea was the guy they should have nominated, in my opinion. He was the best candidate of the group. Now, he couldn't get more than 8.3%, so how can I say he was the best candidate? He would have been the toughest matchup for the governor.
Probably, yes.
He represents that governing, because he was plenty liberal.
Oh, yeah.
He was plenty progressive. But in kind of a non-threatening way that people, Democrats like my grandparents when they were still alive would have been perfectly comfortable voting for.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't get close to it, and he spent. Oh God, can you imagine being his law partner? And you had to max out to this guy. You might as well just thrown that money into a bonfire, man.
Pretty much.
What a waste.
So then, finishing fourth was Krish Vignaraja.
Right.
Showing that 8.2% of the Democratic Party was perfectly willing to vote for a candidate not even eligible to serve in the office of governor.
Well, she got close enough on the eligibility thing that it became a non-issue. But
yeah.
yeah.
Finishing 5th after spending most of his month of June trying to troll us on Twitter and failing with Rich Madaleno, which probably should have been the writing on the wall we should have seen then when he was spending so much of his time fussing about us on Twitter. But
I'm surprised that the gay kiss to stick it to the president didn't do any better. But there you go.
I'm sure
even among Democratic voters that didn't seem.
It's almost like it's almost like it was a Hail Mary last ditch effort for publicity and attention, a scream of
It's
attention.
interesting you would apply that term to it.
I
But,
know, right?
okay.
By the way, if Ben Jealous isn't in this race, Madaleno probably does a hell of a sight better because he's basically.
Well, I think he would have done better. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, he basically
Sure,
it's the
that was
same
the lane he was
agenda,
in. Right,
The
that was
same
the lane he was
agenda,
in.
but without all that California money.
Yeah, there was a lot of California money.
And then Greg made the results go away. And then Valerie Irvin came next with 3.2% of the vote, which, okay. Alec Ross, who raised as much money as Jim Shea did, only got 2.3% of the vote. Almost like Greg running around basically with, basically
What's that have to do with me?
it's almost like running around saying that let's legalize pot and that being our strategy is not a winning strategy in a Democratic primary.
Well, I mean, Ben Jealous wants to do it, so.
Right, but there's a little more substance, even insanity, but substance to Ben Jealous than just legalize weed.
We really, really need it to fund all the crap I want to do.
You're going to need this weed to put up with the nonsense I want to do.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Ralph Jaffe and James Jones brought up the rear as expected,
Yeah.
but still combined for 3.1% of the vote, which was more than Alec Ross. What does that mean to you? I don't really know. In the U.S.
Alec Ross lost to people who weren't in the race.
Yes.
The Kamenetz Irvin ticket.
By about 1%. They had almost twice as many votes, or 50% more votes than he did. Yes. Let's talk about the U.S. Senate race. The Democratic side, no surprises there. I'm a little surprised, and I mean very slightly, little surprised that given the lunatic fringe that came out to vote in this Democratic primary, that Chelsea Manning only got a little less than 6% of the vote.
Well, I don't know that she was the focus because Manning wasn't really running a campaign. So
Agreed.
I mean, that was part of it. If Manning had actually run a campaign and focused and tried to tap into that, but it was a vanity project. We all know that. Some of the other people were actually trying to do something.
Yes, this Jerry Siegel fella who, if you look on Twitter, still doesn't seem to realize the race is over and he lost.
Well, he's of the mindset, his political philosophy doesn't acknowledge setbacks in, like, elections. I mean, he's one of those kind of
And
guys.
allegedly this guy, loaned himself $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why, but look, that's why he got more votes and Chelsea Manning, who's just a flash man. But Ben Cardin wasn't really seriously challenged.
No.
We thought he would be. Some people thought he would be.
I don't think I ever thought he would be. I thought that just based on the mood of the Democratic electorate that he would get a lot less than 80% of the vote.
Right. And he did. So, I mean, hats off to him.
Now, the Republican side, not really a surprise at the top, quite frankly. Tony Campbell won.
Congratulations, Tony.
Got 29.2% of the vote.
Right.
Chris Chafee finished second for the second straight Republican U.S. Senate primary. Chris Chafee finished second, possibly on the basis of having, a last name early in the alphabet.
And signs.
All over the place.
Signs, man. If you want to, I mean, he did better than everybody. I mean, there were 9 other candidates in the race or whatever.
He improved. He got 14% last time. He got 24% this time. Maybe in 4 years he can run again. You're saying there's a chance.
Sure.
Christina Gregorian finished third, 17.5%. It's funny because Greg and I were talking about this off the air.
Right. Really good show we had off the air. Don't say everything we said off the air.
The quote Republican choice unquote won the primary. Chris Chafee finished second, and the liberal pro-abortion candidate finished third, just like what happened 2 years ago.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, the exact same thing.
Except Christina Gregorian got in. She started again, another one. started running too late, started
Well,
being,
but if you remember, and the worst part is that she was at the state party convention in
Right.
November
right.
with her hospitality suite, and then nobody heard from her again until she filed.
Meanwhile, Tony Campbell's out. He's out at every event. He's out meeting people. He's out getting his name out there. He's building those kind of and yeah, he's tapping into kind of the establishment, whatever. But again, the name of the game is name recognition at this point. So I think he's the right thing to do there. So he did the right thing, though it was close. It was close.
Yeah.
It's a crapshoot.
There's a commenter, by the way, on our Facebook Live feed.
Right.
By the way, Facebook.com/RedMaryland, who thinks
We're broadcasting live.
that we need to focus on Gavin the Taxer.
Yeah. All right. You're getting distracted by that. Don't
Well, I'm just
distract
pointing
yourself.
out the name of the show is Red Maryland Radio, not Red California Radio. That's all I'm saying.
He might be talking about the mayor of Annapolis.
Maybe.
I think he's. I'll give him the benefit.
I'll
of the
give you
doubt.
the
He's talking
benefit
about
of the
the
doubt.
Maryland. And we will focus on that in time.
We'll deal with
we
him.
have talked about it.
We will
Did
deal
you
with him
write
in due
something
time.
about that in the paper?
I did write something
Yeah.
about that in the paper.
Yeah, that
several
election has passed.
months
but
ago.
we'll get back to it. Thank you. Don't
Anyway,
get distracted, man.
Sorry.
Don't get distracted.
Sorry. Well, I just want to acknowledge
gets
the
shiny
people,
things.
acknowledge the people watching on Facebook Live.
We appreciate that.
We appreciate it. This is our second week of doing this. Ratings bonanza last week when we did this. So the simulcast,
Okay.
whether Greg
All right.
wants it or not, is part of the future.
All right. Okay.
John Graziotti, by the way, almost
You're
got
not
almost,
helping,
got
right?
almost 9%. Blaine Taylor finished 5%. Gerald Smith, conspiracy nut, 4.3%. Brian Vaith, who dropped out of the race weeks ago to endorse Tony Campbell, got 3.1%.
Right.
Did not finish last. Four candidates, still finished with fewer votes than he did.
It's a crapshoot. It's just random. It's just whatever.
As Greg pointed out earlier, and by the way, Evan Kronhart got 2.5% of the vote. Krenbrink, 2%. Eze, 1.9%. Howard, 1.5%. There were several candidates on this list where more people viewed their candidate surveys at redmaryland.com
Yes.
than
Unique
got
page
votes.
views than they got votes. Yes.
Yeah.
Which says to me, maybe they didn't like what they read. But I'll tell you, we had huge readership, far and away the biggest ever at Red Maryland's history, our 11-plus year history. And of the top 10 posts, at least 5 or 6 of them were the candidate surveys from our U.S. Senate candidate. So
Yes.
you guys really did take an interest in that race and took advantage of what we had to offer at redmaryland.com. And, of course, those guys who participated in the poll. I don't know that how much of it would have affected the outcome, but I think it was definitely a race that none of these guys was really a household name. And it was probably the race we were able to give the most people the most information about.
And by the way, as I
we
think
were happy to do it.
the June 2018, the biggest readership in
Right.
Red Maryland history,
Yeah.
not by a little, by the way.
Oh, yes.
By leaps and bounds. So thank you to everybody who participated in
Absolutely.
that. For those of you who are wondering, our candidate surveys are going to the winners are going to roll over to a new page. You'll still be able to find the information. It's on the
Right.
front page at redmaryland.com. More coverage will be coming about the governor's race and other races. So
That's right.
let's you want to take a break or do you want to talk about the legislative races?
It's up to you.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about all the other races when we come back on the flip side of this break. Stick with us.
Hold on.
Stick with us. I promise you should stick with us. You were listening to Red Maryland Radio on the Red Maryland Network.
You can help Red Maryland grow our reach when you visit redmaryland.com and click on the Amazon link and shop as normal. A portion of your purchase will come back to Red Maryland to help us grow. Additionally, you can buy Red Maryland t-shirts, drinkware, and other gear from our Zazzle store at zazzle.com/redmaryland. We want to hear from you. Email us at any time at redmaryland@gmail.com. You can also leave audio feedback on our Red Maryland talkback line at 410-205-4875. We might use your feedback on our programming. You are listening to Maryland's most trusted conservative voice, the Red Maryland Network. Be sure to follow Red Maryland on all of the major social networking sites. You can follow us at Red Maryland on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Google+, Snapchat, and Tumblr to get the latest from Red Maryland. And be sure to follow the home base for all things Red Maryland, redmaryland.com. Celebrating 5 years as Maryland's only network that matters. You're listening to the Red Maryland Network.
Continuous country.
We're back on Red Maryland Radio on the Red Maryland Network. I'm Brian. He's Greg.
Actually, you know what? I realized I played the wrong song there.
You think? Because nothing says continuous country like hold on loosely, right?
Well, I mean, it's Southern rock. I probably could have gotten away with it.
Okay.
But let's just do that break. Let's just come back from break again because we have a song in our reserve that we rarely ever got to play, and now
We may never get to play it again.
we'll never get to play it again.
All right, let's go back to the break, okay? Let's pretend this never
I
happened,
mean,
okay?
it's just so darn
All right,
frustrating because
Hit the
well, I
sound.
have to find
hit the
it.
effect. Okay.
Wow,
This
this is
is what happens when you don't prepare, Greg.
I was okay. So it's my fault then, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
let's try it
thank you
again.
for bearing with me.
Continuous country.
Now gather around, chill and beat down. Well, just get down, chill and get loud. Well, you can be loud here and be proud. And you can be proud here and I'll be proud forever. Cause the South gon' do it again and again.
Hey, we're back. Red Maryland Radio on the Red Maryland Network. I'm Brian. He's Greg.
I actually do enjoy that song. That was our Mike Peruka theme that we rarely got to play because, and now he's lost his primary.
But we'll talk more about that in a
Will we?
little bit.
I think we just covered it pretty much.
Yeah, he lost to who may or may not be a union plant. There you go.
Who actually the night of just to show you how powerful we are, when we were doing the Senate debate, actually literally knocked on my door as we were doing that.
Yeah.
So I was not able to speak with her because we'd have gotten her on the air. And
Oh,
I would have asked her
absolutely.
those questions, but the timing just wasn't right. But anyway,
Let's talk about General Assembly races, some important races, and I'll just kind of go numerically in my head here.
go numerically in your head. Why don't we start with that?
So Senate District 3, of course, we talked about it last week.
This is one of those drive for 5. We were talking about this before. If the Republicans picked up 5 more seats, they can sustain the governor's vetoes. So that changes the balance of power in Annapolis. The governor can veto things and the assembly can't overrule them. If the assembly can overrule the governor's vetoes, then they can pretty much do whatever they want except propose a budget, and they'll try to get around that with mandated spending. So there's a lot that could happen in a second Hogan term if that happens. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. The drive for 5 is huge.
But either way, the Senate Democrats.
And I think
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it's as important as getting Governor Hogan reelected.
The Senate Democrats dropped $50,000 trying to pull Billy Shreve over the finish line, trying to link him to President Trump.
Yeah.
And for their
He
efforts,
was happy to accept, by the way.
Oh, of course he was. For their efforts, Billy Shreve got curb stomped by Craig Giangrande, 76.5 to 23.5.
Yeah.
Not even close. And we knew that was kind of coming because, we saw the fundraising. Giangrande had, 30 times as much cash on hand as Billy Shreve. I'm not sure if Billy Shreve just thought his name ID was going to carry him over or he was just going through the motions or what. But
yeah, and
for a sitting county councilman to just be absolutely wiped out by a businessman who's never run for office before, that's a pretty damning indictment of Billy Shreve.
I think that's true, and I think Craig Giangrande ran a smart campaign and an effective campaign. And turnout wasn't super high, but he went out and he got the job done. He ran look, as much as we like to think elections turn on issues and all that kind of stuff, at the end of the day, especially local elections, it's math, it's hard work, it's being smart, it's science, not art. And Billy Shreve didn't run a very good campaign, didn't run a lot of money, didn't raise a lot of money, isn't very skilled when it comes to messaging. I guess he just thought, oh, Trump, and that would win him a state Senate primary. It's condescending to your voters, okay? And I'm sure a lot of those voters were offended by the Democrats trying to do that. I'm sure a lot
I
of
would
those
hope.
voters, whether they read what we wrote in Red Maryland or not, realized what was going on and they took offense to it. You know, Republican primary voters aren't dumb, despite what the Democrats think. And I'm sure that they were discerning enough, and I think this is a great example. They realize they want to beat Ron Young. They get how important that is. Electability is an important issue.
Yeah.
The drive for 5, I think our Republican primary voters particularly, they get it. And I think this is a classic example. Billy Shreve was not a good candidate. He didn't convince anybody that he was going to be better at beating Ron Young. And the voters turned him out on his butt, as they should. And great job by Greg Giangrande.
In House District 5, I know there
And
were
by the way, before you move on, Ron Young didn't get 50% of the vote on the Democratic side.
43.5%.
So he's not exactly coming in with a huge mandate on his own side.
Not.
This is a very winnable race for the Republicans.
And we should have lost it, but that's a whole nother show we could do one day. District 5 House race, we saw David Ellen,
Okay, you're just riffing. You don't need me to scroll through.
no, was wiped out easily by the incumbents. No surprise there. District 7 was a bit of a disappointment in the House race for us because we saw Kathy Schlega won, great.
Sure. Well, we knew
Lauren
that.
Arikan finished third, okay. We weren't, we didn't really have a horse in that race. There were 13 candidates running. It was kind of a scrum.
Right.
And if you look at the results, it's not like Lauren Arikan got, she got 13.7% of the vote, but that was enough to carry her over.
Yeah.
And it wasn't particularly close. She cleared the next candidate by 3%. But Rick Impalaria, because of the divided field, and I think we talked about this, Greg.
Yeah.
Because so many people ran, you had so many different candidates to be not Impalaria. And Impalaria wound up getting through with 14.6% of the vote and will be on the ballot in the general election.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating as hell.
Like Aaron Penman, the only one in double digits.
Yeah.
It was challenging. But, again, I go back to something that I said before, and I understand the why and the what for. But I really think, and we saw this in other races where the incumbents kind of slated up, where you had incumbents kind of focusing on a particular challenger they knew would be problematic come November. I really, really wish Kathy Schlega would have done something like that to freeze out Rick Impalaria, because I think one of the things we learned is it would have worked.
Yeah, we'll get to that race in a second.
Well, more than one, frankly, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was, it was very frustrating in a night that was really good for the things that we wanted to see happen.
Yeah,
that was a very frustrating result.
Yeah, because I think look, and I know, well, who do you choose? How are you going to make people mad? I get it, but it was a little feckless to not do more to get Rick Impalaria out, because it could have happened. She was strong enough as a candidate. She has enough leadership, ostensibly, that she could have picked a couple of these guys and, run the table and knocked out Rick Impalaria, and she didn't do it. And I think we'll regret that, even if he's reelected.
I agree. In the state Senate race in District 9, a much closer, by the way, result than I think any of us expected. Gail Bates was reelected, but Reed Novotny, who ran what could frankly be best described as a weird campaign.
Well, we interviewed him on Election Focus, and he was an unconventional candidate. Let's say.
And he had campaign signs way out. I saw a Reed Novotny campaign sign in Annapolis over the weekend.
Yeah,
which is nowhere near his district on the border of Howard and Carroll counties.
I understand,
but
you and I appreciate that more than other people do. But yeah, I mean, it does seem kind of silly that far away from the district. That I know,
but it showed. It showed that in a Republican primary, Gail Bates is a potentially pretty weak candidate.
I think it does show some vulnerability.
And I don't know I don't know how much campaigning she actually did. I know that she shared a mailer that went out from Novotny, which is just terrible Photoshop, which was clearly a fabricated briefing that he gave.
Oh, it was terrible.
It was one of the most asinine, dishonest
ridiculous
pieces of mail I've ever seen.
And look, we saw this in 2006 too, where you have an incumbent Republican governor, and you've got people claiming endorsements from this guy, that they shouldn't be. And this was.
But there are
one
ways
of
to apply that endorsement that don't involve photoshopping.
and wearing a uniform that arguably violated, military rules and all this kind of stuff. But this was the thing that's always very frustrating is those governors in those circumstances where the endorsement is kind of egregiously used without permission, they rarely come out and slap somebody down. And this was one I really and I don't know if it was asked or was refused or whatever. This is one I really wish the governor had come out a little bit more and said, this Reed Novotny's a bad guy.
And this may not,
this guy.
and it may never have gotten to the governor's attention.
It may not
quite
have,
frankly.
and he's got a lot of other things he's worried about. But I don't get the impression that, except with some of the exceptions you're talking about, that Gail Bates really went after her opponent. We're going to talk about this Baltimore County executive race here in a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Al Redmer was like in Facebook comment sections every day.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in the face of these guys going up against him. Some of these guys in these tough primaries, they give as good as they get, and they'll take on all comers. I didn't get the impression Gail Bates. I got the impression that at least for some period of time, Gail Bates was letting some free shots come in because she didn't take this guy seriously enough, or it's not really her personality, or she thought she'd be safe, which ultimately she was. But yeah,
it's clear
somebody with better chops might have really knocked her off.
Somebody who can raise money and have good conservative credentials and can get people behind them. In 2022.
And actually,
you never know.
And actually run and get people to put signs up legally in their yards, which is not that hard to do if you go out as a candidate. Because Gail Bates doesn't have universal name recognition even within her own district. Trust me.
Agreed. District 27B, the House race, disappointing result. We saw Phil Parenti lose, which is that's unfortunate. Phil's a good guy, good candidate. He was very, very honored to have our endorsement.
Yeah.
Good guy, and I have no beef with his opponent. It's just.
Yeah,
I wanted to see Phil win,
and I think he was very gracious in losing because he's a class guy, and and he'll work to get a Republican in that seat, and his wife has stuff for him to do now. So,
I do want to talk about State Senate District 28, the Democratic primary, where probably the biggest shock result of the night to me was. Mac Middleton, Finance Committee Chairman of the State Senate, going down in the primary.
That's a big one. That was a big one.
That's a huge shock.
We can debate it. I don't think that was the biggest shock to me.
Really?
I think Joe Valerio going down on the delegate side is
a
much bigger shock.
That's fair.
Because he had to finish third.
Yeah, because it's a two-member district.
And he is, as much as Mac Middleton is an institution, and he is, Joe Valerio is an absolute institution, especially
and this, by the way,
in the legal community and anything that has to do with that. I mean, every major legal issue of the last, in my entire life, it seems, ended up with him putting something in his desk.
Yeah.
I mean, he single-handedly is the reason we still have contributory negligence in this state. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. It is a
not saying that's good or bad, just saying I'm just making an observation.
And it'll be interesting to see if John Leonard, the Republican nominee, can make any headway. I mean, that district's not that great for Republicans, but you have a candidate with no name ID in the general electorate going against another candidate with no name ID in the general electorate, and depending on what that general electorate looks like, weird things could happen. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know if Arthur Ellis is a good candidate or not.
I don't know.
He beat Mac Middleton. That says something.
Yeah. Well, and you don't know if it's that far left or whatever, and we don't know how good John Leonard's going to be as a candidate either. But
it's true.
That could be one of those. If you have a really good night as Republicans, that would be an indicator.
You could basically steal one.
Yeah.
Speaking of senators who went down in primary elections, Steve Waugh went down hard.
Yeah, he took it well though.
Did he?
No.
I didn't see anything.
I
had not seen any comments.
They were
from him.
flaming. They were flaming out on the way down.
Oh yeah, I mean, with the comments that he was making on Facebook that his assistant tried to take the blame for, which was just totally bogus. I've not seen any comments, from the Waugh camp. Personally, though, I know he unsubscribed to the Red Maryland newsletter.
Oh well, that's all right.
Whatever. Whatever.
Look, the governor had a big night. We'll talk about this Baltimore County race, but he stuck his neck out for a couple candidates, Some people thought he might have made a mistake, but he did not.
He did not. No, the governor knows what the governor, people, we talked about this 4 years ago. The governor has really good political instincts.
Yes, and he's very popular.
Yeah.
I think the people in our party who think he's lost his base or he's alien, nope. Look at these primaries. Well, low turnout primaries for Republicans too. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
And his guys, the guys that the establishment wanted, that he personally was out for, they kicked ass.
Yeah. And remember, he endorsed the conservative candidate against the liberal candidate in both those times. FYI. So let's talk about 30B. Chelsea Gill managed to win for the House race, as well as Bob O'Shea, my dear close personal friend. Now let's talk about, Greg, the fun stuff, okay?
Okay.
District 31B.
That's where you live.
That's where I live. And there were 4 candidates running in that race.
I seem to recall, yes.
There was Nick Kipke, and there was
Right.
John Leopold, and there was Brian Chisholm, and there was David Therian. And quite frankly, I thought this was going to be a very close race. I thought that Nick Kipke was going to finish way ahead of the field, which he did.
Right.
And I thought it was going to kind of be a nail biter between Brian Chisholm and John Leopold. I had gotten hip some intelligence
Right.
that said this isn't going to be close.
A little birdie told you.
Yeah.
This is one of those races where, we got it wrong. I thought it would be closer too.
Oh,
I
I
was praying that Brian Chisholm would win. I would never. I do think something special was happening in that race. And we'll talk. I'll give you my thoughts in a second.
Brian Chisholm got over 4 times as many votes as John Leopold.
But this is one where the conventional wisdom would have said, and there were a lot of Leopold signs. I think there were more signs than he got votes.
And I've gotten.
To be honest with you, I really think
the
there
scuttlebutt
were.
is that Leopold was putting signs in people's yards without permission. That people were removing signs, and we're taking the signs up, and then Leopold would come back and put them in the yard again.
Right.
And that most of the people with Leopold signs were not committed to voting for Leopold.
Yeah, there were more signs than he got votes. I can
Yes.
tell you that. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 1,000. He got 1,000 votes. Maybe there weren't 1,000 signs, but there were an awful lot. There were houses with 1,000 people living in them. A lot more than that. So
Yeah. I mean, so it was.
Look, I said this, and I'll give you the final word on this race, but I said this on election night. Thank God. God bless the Pasadena voters. I will never say a bad word, and I rarely do, but I will never say a bad word about people from Pasadena because 2 elections in a row, they have turned out bad Republicans.
Yeah.
They have turned out incorrigible convicts, and have stood up in character matters in Pasadena, and God bless them.
Yeah.
God bless
Now,
them.
do I think Leopold's done? No. He'll be back.
Oh, come
I've already heard rumors that he's coming back. Because, look, here's the problem.
John, get help. Get help.
He's a 75-year-old septuagenarian with no family, no spouse, no life, no career, no job, no clue, and he's a sad, pathetic loser. That's what it comes down to. He's a loser.
Volunteer. Do something, man. Come on. What is it going to take for you to realize your neighbors are sending you a message, man? It's not because you're standing up against the establishment. These results don't come from that.
No.
Okay.
If it was close, if it was like 1 or 2%,
right.
I could understand. All right, maybe you want to give this another go. But the voters, John, told you to shove it up your ass, and not by much. Okay.
Here I am.
So why don't you
Here I
go?
am, salt of the earth, good Christian folk.
Go back to
You're
Hawaii.
talking about shoving things up people's ass.
Go back to Hawaii or go back to Pennsylvania where you're from. Spend your trust fund money on something something competent, and get the hell out of our lives. End of sermon.
There you go. Well, there's 2 different perspectives on that. I felt yours. I said mine. So anyway.
Hey, by the way,
good on you, Pasadena.
Speaking of Anne Arundel County, District 32.
District 7, you could learn something.
District 32 Senate race, by the way.
Yeah.
What even? I mean, that was. From last I checked, it was still in the tens of votes between Grasso and Maureen Bryant. I don't have those results in front of me.
I thought John had won.
I thought it was like 1%. I also thought John had won, but I don't think it is out of the realm of possibility.
Okay.
That,
well, let's double check
I mean,
and see where we are
it's
right now.
highly unlikely based on, the number of ballots that
Well,
are
look,
out.
that's an important race. No, it wasn't that
71 votes.
close. Okay, but it's percentage-wise.
Okay.
John won. Look, that's an important race. Let's be honest. Pam Beidel's going to be tough to beat. She's dumb as a bag of hammers, but, that's not going to be that. It's not going to be the Lincoln Douglas debates between these two. But this is one we need to pick
I know
up.
not even be the Lincoln Log debate.
But this is one we need to pick up if we can. And John is a good campaigner, and
it
he's a
frustrates
man
me
of
to
the
no
people.
end that he spent 8 months or whatever doing that whole nonsense where he was running for county executive when he could have been campaigning for this seat.
Let's just say he listened to reason at the end. He was made an offer that he couldn't refuse, and his job now is to carry it through and win this seat and get to the state senate, and he'll have our support in doing that.
Yes. Now let's talk about your district, Greg. District 33, House of Delegates.
Yeah, Ed Riley won the primary, uncontested. I voted.
Well, that's the state senate.
I voted for you, Big Ed.
That's the state senate. So let's talk about the House of Delegates, which
Wow.
here some more surprising results. Now, Greg and I were basically telling anybody who would listen that the most likely outcome.
Yeah, no, I was terribly wrong on that.
Yeah, the most likely outcome was that the 3 seats would be Sid Saab, Tony McConkey, and Jerry Walker.
Right.
Well, Meatloaf always said 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Here's the thing, and this is also reaffirms a belief that it's "O ye of little faith," in my part. This race in 33 affirms forever, if you had any doubt, the power, the awesome power, the unrelenting, unmitigated power of negative campaigning. It works, people. It works. Get at it, stay at it, and it works.
And by the way,
these
not
guys-
to the point, it also the same team also just carpet bombed Leopold for 3 months too.
Right.
So
Well, and there you go. I mean, Jerry Walker had more money. He had lots of name
and not a small
recognition.
amount of more money. He had what
He had more than those guys
$180,000.
put together,
Yeah.
which is misleading. It's misleading. Let's be honest.
Still, I mean, it's still a not insignificant sum of money for
And
a house race.
And these guys went after him a long time. They went after him. I remember when I ran for office, and I sent like a fundraising letter that was negative, and our old friend Eric Roby's like, "Oh, it's too early for that." These guys were sending out mailers all throughout the district. Right now, first off, I voted for Mike Malone. Single shot Mike Malone, because I didn't think the other two needed me. I thought Mike needed me. I could have voted for the other two. I'm going to get in trouble for admitting that now. So strike that from the record. But no, I single shot Mike. I thought Mike, because of the name recognition. I want to go on the record right now and say, Mike, I am sorry. I underestimated you. You did a hell of a job. You are a great delegate. I said that before. I underestimated the hard work you were putting into this campaign. People really do like you, as they should. I've known you for years, and I've known that personally.
And let me say this too, by the way.
But you ran a hell of a campaign to come in second in a very contested race. A lot of people were underestimating you. You proved them wrong. You've earned this 4-year term as a delegate. You had my vote. And God bless you. I know you're going to do a great job.
Yeah, I had got some intel that Mike was kind of feeling the burn about a week before the election.
Yeah.
And just, went into hyperdrive, sending out some mailers and kind of really putting the nose to the grindstones. He really worked his ass off that last week.
And I know Mike, and I wasn't giving Mike enough credit because, he got appointed and he hadn't run before, and that's kind of that conventional wisdom stuff. But you worked your ass off, and he's a good guy. Nobody ever questioned that. Nobody questions that Mike Malone is a good guy, and he always has been. And God bless you. God bless
The
you.
real shocker in this race, more so than the 3 candidates who won,
Right.
was Jerry Walker finishing 5th. Not 4th.
5th. Yeah.
5th.
Yeah. No. Again, do not underestimate.
And it wasn't even a close 5th.
Do not underestimate the power of negative. And
he was 2.5 percentage points behind Stacey McDonald, who, again, other than our candidate survey,
right.
I had never even heard a
I got
some
things in the mail. She kind of snuck in. It's one of those things when a lot of people are going negative in multi-candidate race. She was the only woman on the ballot. That's significant.
Definitely.
Plenty of empirical evidence to show that's an advantage. She did do some mailers late. Did the Trump thing a little bit more than the other guys did. I think Tony did as well near the end. Trump was not a losing way to go if in a Republican primary. Except if the Democrats are doing it for you, then you know.
Yeah,
then we see through that nonsense. So she almost snuck in there because Tony McConkey, who and by the way, Tony, another tough race. I mean, look, I didn't think Tony was going to have a problem at all. You know, he's running. This is what his 5th term now.
Yes.
So you know, I don't. You know, I was kind of questioning whether he really needed a 5th term. Not because he hasn't voted in a good way, because he always has, and we've endorsed him in the past. But I thought he would get over no problem. He had the slate behind him. He had Steve Shue behind him. He was carpet bombing Jerry Walker. I didn't think he was going to have a problem, and it got close because Jerry gave as good as he got. And this is the way it is for Tony. Tony always gets attacked, and look, the stuff they attacked him on is old stuff. It's stuff that comes up every election. It is what it is. Jerry Walker reprinted this letter that we talked about 4 years ago when Ed Riley sent it out. Probably got wider dissemination. But the voters in this district have heard all of that time and time again, and they keep sending Tony back. So, I mean, you got to give the man credit. I read something in some George Soros-funded newspaper outlet online that said McConkey didn't have a strong hold on the district and therefore he was vulnerable. I didn't believe it then. I sure as hell don't believe it now. So I don't know why he'd want to be delegate for 20 years, but he's going to be. And if he wanted to be 24, he probably could be.
Yeah, certainly. Really not a lot of other House and Senate stuff I really want to cover at this point. Mike Schmeigel Jr.'s bid to follow in his father's footsteps went down in flames, much like his father's bid for judge.
I was going to say, he did follow in his footsteps.
Well, fair. By the way, Mike Schmeigel has now run in, 4 consecutive elections, every 2 years. And I don't know why he spends his filing fee at this point.
I don't know. I read his concession in the judge race he was in about how collegial he was with the sitting judges, and it was all that kind of stuff. And by the way, congratulations to Judge Mark Crooks, who we had on the show.
Who won both the Republican and
the Democratic ballot. Big win for Judge Crooks, who is not a politician. And it was if you're campaigning and you're not a politician, that's not in your blood, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard. And you could see it was hard every step of the way, but he did a good job. It's a testament to the governor's faith in him. It's a testament to the voters here.
And we'll see if the Democrats try to round up some jabron. I think the filing deadline was today to run as a petition candidate, so I think he probably cleared that hurdle.
No, he'll be there for 15 years. So
yeah.
Congratulations, Judge Cruz.
Just a couple other races we're going to talk about here, and then we'll kind of get to the real fun stuff. Frederick County Executive Kathy Afzali won that race.
There you go.
That story, that's not really the surprising story. Well, this part's not really surprising either. Is the fact that Kirby DeLauder then endorsed some Democrat running as an independent as opposed to endorsing the Republican nominee.
Well, it's Blaine Young's support, so there's that.
Yeah, well, how's that worked out in Frederick County before?
Yeah,
well, I mean, unless I'd like to think that this is DeLauder playing some sort of three-dimensional chess that's going to take support away from Jan Gardner and will throw the election at Kathy Afzali, but that I'm not sure that Kirby DeLauder understands the rules of two-dimensional chess, much less.
He might say that under the harsher Republican critics who he cares about. He might tell them something like that and say it'll take more votes because he's supporting a lifelong Democrat who's running for county executive.
Yeah. Nope, we've never had, Greg, somebody win least valuable conservative 2 years in a row. But I got to say, that makes Kirby DeLauder a strong contender for the award.
Well, yeah. Yeah. and look, congratulations to Delegate Afzali. She's going to have to work hard. Look, look.
Frederick County ain't as red as it used to be.
We didn't make an endorsement in that race. So Delegate Afzali is going to have to show us something. Jan Gardner is no slouch. That's a very, very winnable race. But Delegate Afzali is going to have to show us something.
Definitely.
Yeah. So
definitely.
Baltimore County.
Who
won that?
Yeah, Al Redmer won, and it wasn't particularly close, about 12%. We'll talk a little bit more about Pat McDonough here in a minute.
Yeah.
But,
we've been exposed. We'll have to
the Al Redmer campaign, a professional machine full of veterans from the Hogan campaign. Like you said, Greg, they worked their ass off to make sure that.
Well, let's not undersell it. It's two people who work their butts off.
Yeah.
It's Zach Peters and
Hannah
Marr.
Yeah.
And they did work their butts. I gave them a hard time before. If they lost, they can't put it on the resume. Well, they can put this on the resume now.
Yeah.
And they deserve to.
Yeah. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of doubt.
I wonder about that poll that came out that showed him behind. I think that scared him a little bit.
Well, it should. I mean, it should have scared him. And
but it was so. And now I look back at it, that had to be a sketchy poll.
Well, you never know. The good thing, though, for the Redmer campaign is that they've now been the Republican nominee for 6 days, and they can just run at this point. They don't know who their Democratic opponent's going to be.
That's crazy.
Last I checked, it was down to what 120 some
between the three of them.
120 some votes.
They're going to litigate it. There's no way that doesn't end up in a courtroom in Towson. There's no way. There's too much money at stake. You got the egos, all three of them. There's no way that.
And by the way, same thing going on in Montgomery County, where that's down to like 120 some votes between Elrich and Blair. And oh, by the way, today Nancy Florine, a Democratic county councilwoman, decided that she's going to run as an independent. Which the happiest person in Montgomery County right now is named Robin Ficker.
Can you say County Executive Ficker?
Hey, it ain't out of the realm of possibility.
That would be the greatest thing in the world. And Montgomery County deserves the leadership that Robin Ficker can bring. Absolutely. That would be amazing.
The other big race I think we need to talk about, Greg, is the sheriff's race here in Anne Arundel County.
Yeah.
And this broke down,
a new sheriff in town. Thank you.
Yeah, and look, it was, Jim Frederick. Red Maryland endorsed Jim Frederick. And Jim Fredericks, by the way, got very few endorsements as it was, okay?
And you want to talk about a guy, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. You want to talk about a guy who worked his butt off? He was the first guy who came to my door like a year ago.
Yeah.
So deserved it. That is working hard.
He got 40% of the vote in the primary against 3 other candidates, one of which was the incumbent sheriff, another which was the only woman on the ballot, probably the first woman ever to run for sheriff in Anne Arundel County. That race got ugly,
Yes.
And
hey, Anne Arundel County primary politics are fun. You can't deny
they are
that.
not for the faint of heart.
We've upped our game this cycle too.
They are not for the you want to click on the other one.
I know.
The lower one.
I know what I want. Just keep talking.
Keep the interesting thing there was the fact that you had, like I said, Jim Fredericks got only a couple of endorsements. He got endorsed by the police, he got endorsed by Red Maryland, and he got endorsed by the Capitol, and that's it. You saw Beth Smith had a whole bunch of people endorsing her. You had the Ehrlichs, you had Wes Adams. I think Steve Shue was on there too. All these people going in for Beth Smith. That didn't quite,
Steve Shue was supporting Beth Smith.
I thought I saw something about that. I could be wrong, and I apologize if I'm wrong.
Hate to question your police work there,
but
I'm not 100% sure.
But I know the Ehrlichs and Wes Adams and a couple other Republicans.
He won it pretty handily too.
He won it by 5% of the vote.
Yeah. 1,300 votes. I mean,
maybe Bateman should have stopped, spending all his time tweeting pictures at Red Maryland, which he did frequently.
Yeah. Well, he tried to Trumpify at the end too. I don't think it helped him that much.
Well, when you're a lifelong Democrat and you're going all in on the Trump thing, it doesn't quite.
Well, Trump's a lifelong Democrat. In fairness.
Yeah.
Oh, Klein just made people mad.
It's true though. No, really.
It kind of is. Sorry.
No, really.
Sorry.
And the big win, by the way, it's funny because you talk about organization. Jim Fredericks beat Bateman by about 200 votes in early voting, and he's beaten him by 4 in absentees and provisionals. But he beat him by over 1,000 on election day itself. So that tells you that tells you a competent organization,
Yeah.
a organization that was well thought out.
It is math and it is science, not art.
Definitely.
Local elections.
Definitely.
That's what it is, man. Nuts and bolts, baby.
Final thoughts about the primary.
It was a big win for Governor Hogan. I don't think he could have gotten any more than what he got. I think Republican voters voted overwhelmingly for electability and for good, solid candidates. I think a lot of candidates who should have been turned out, we didn't even talk, well, we mentioned Peruka, got turned out. The guy that made all those signs that had, Peruka, Leopold, and McConkey, they're hardly any good now.
It's funny because I only saw those signs a couple of times.
And McConkey's going to win the general, so don't even get any idea. Folks.
Yeah.
He's going to be fine. The sheriff's probably going to have a little bit of a race, but they'll.
I don't
slate
know
up,
if that
they'll team
sheriff's.
up.
I don't know, I don't know anything about the Democrat running for sheriff.
And Wes Adams won too. We all talk about that. He won.
Oh,
He
yes.
won pretty easy here in Anne Arundel County, and a lot of races around. There were some upsets on the Eastern Shore. I know. I talked about that with on WGMD with Mike Bradley. The Worcester County. They had the two guys with the same last name,
McDermott.
and they both got beat.
Mike McDermott, who was about 2% of the vote away from being a state senator and beating Jim Thies 4 years ago,
Yeah,
lost the primary.
yeah. Was
That was
it his son he was running with, or
I thought it was his brother.
brother?
as
Brother
the
makes
state's
more
attorney,
sense.
and they
Brother
both
makes more
lost.
sense.
Which
Yeah.
make of that what you will.
Yeah, that you ought to make something of that. There's something there. I'm not from Worcester County, but folks over in Worcester don't like the McDermott boys. And that's probably exactly what it was. Something like that.
Maybe, but I was,
Someone call it. Let us know.
again, the Worcester County, sheriff's primary was not high on our radar here at Red Maryland.
Well, there are a lot of races, and those local races are fascinating. But those kind of results.
Yeah.
And again, local elections. Again, it's what we talk about. And by the way, in the general, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's nuts and bolts. Party identification is certainly going to be a factor, but you got more unaffiliated voters than you ever have. You're going to have a lot of crossover voting at the top of the ballot. There's going to be opportunities for good, hardworking candidates down ballot to win races that are going to be competitive, and that might be a surprise. So, that's what we love. That's why we're nerds about local elections, because we love crap like that.
Yeah, we definitely do.
We do.
Greg, let's take a break.
I don't think we need to take a break.
Let's take a quick break. It's fun time when we come back. Take a quick break. Or you know what?
No, I don't wanna take a break.
We'll do a live read. Okay?
Do you have a read?
I do. Hey Greg, what's Wednesday?
It's the 4th of July. It's Independence Day.
It is Independence Day. What is a popular activity on Independence Day?
Drinking.
It is drinking. So if you don't want to lose your independence after making a poor decision
Oh, nice.
on
I didn't even know
Independence
what we were
Day,
doing. Look at that.
you should call the law office of Gregory M. Klein. And what's that number?
410-541-6-DUI.
Give me that number again.
410-541-6-DUI. That's 410-541-6384.
It's best not to drink and drive, but if you do and you get caught, call Greg.
That's right. I'm ready. I am ready. I will be sober.
One could say
Some might say sober as a judge, and ready to help.
coiled and ready to pounce, one might say.
Well, whatever's required. Whatever required. It's another. And by the way, it's going to be so ungodly hot.
You're not walking the Severna Park Parade. Is what
I'm not
hearing.
even going out there. I am going to my office because I actually do have a new client meeting. But I'm
on
gonna
the 4th
drive-
of July.
Yeah, I'm going to drive around.
Wow.
Hey, but we don't rest, man. Justice doesn't rest when Greg Klein's involved or something like that. But I'm not even going to go.
Let's work
to
on
parade.
that.
I wish that when I ran the primary, it would have been worth losing if there were a June primary, so I wouldn't have to march in the 4th of July.
Yeah, if you had won the primary in the June primary and run
Yeah.
the 4th of July parade in 33, you really wouldn't have had to walk.
Yeah,
Severna
it
Park
would have been
Parade.
worth it. That would have been worth. It would have been worth losing to say, well, at least I didn't have to march in the 100-degree heat. Of course, I was a bit thinner then, so I probably did.
As we all were.
But anyway,
What you're saying is we should get a float in next year's parade and just
No, we
with a
absolutely
bit-
should not.
No, just drive. Just get like car wraps with redmaryland.com and just drive through the parade.
Can we do?
I know a guy.
Can we just project just like holograms of us, and we just stay in some air conditioned place with a Mai Tai
Yes.
or something.
Hi,
That's
this is
what I wanna
Tupac
do.
Shakur for RedMaryland.com.
All we need are your donations to make that happen. No, there are people, and I know the governor's gonna, and I've done that. We've all done that.
It's the multiple
Severna
parades in a
Park
day,
parade,
by the
Severna
way.
Park parade, then you go to the Annapolis parade in the afternoon.
Or you go to Galesville in between.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
you know, and there's not. It doesn't sound like there's going to be even a thunderstorm to cool it off, as there often is. I don't.
That was the primary year. The 1 year in the Annapolis parade, I wound up standing under a tree in a tornado warning with Phil
Yeah.
Bissett and Mike Bush.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah. I'm glad I don't have to do that. I don't have to, and I ain't gonna do it. So
So all we need to do is
maybe in the future I will have to do that
just
again.
get a
I hope not.
just get a pickup truck with a 4x8 Red Maryland sign and just drive it through the parade.
or just stay at home. I think it's.
And by the way, can I say something? By the way, right here
it's going to be miserable to even watch those parades.
to the
But
candidates.
God bless you if you do.
To the candidates who included their Red Maryland endorsement on their
Yes.
literature, as well as the Red Maryland logo,
Yes,
you the real MVP.
that's right.
Because
Oh,
that is
oh,
free
Oh,
advertising.
we take note of that, and we
Yes.
remember that. And look, I know there were a lot of people who want us to endorse them, and we didn't always. Some of them won, some of them didn't. But I think we helped some of these people we endorsed. We were happy to do it. Not all of them won, but we're proud of all of them. And yeah, you're right. You're right. Showing us the Quan by putting it on there. And look, we don't assume that it has any influence over anybody. You know, we like to
But
think.
let me tell you something.
We like to
I-
think it does. Brian does think it does.
No, hold on. I had several people reach out to me
Right.
and say, "Thanks for writing what you wrote. Thanks for doing this. Thanks
In
for the
newspaper,
information."
right.
No, not just that, but
Oh.
just like thanks for what you wrote at Red Maryland.
Right.
Thanks for telling me in person who to vote for. And that's like, you know what? That builds you up.
Yeah.
Because it's like people actually take.
I'm waiting.
Take
I'm
the stuff
waiting,
that we say
I'm waiting
seriously.
for the kicker. And that
No, there's no
won't be-
kicker.
No,
There's
the
no
kicker's gonna be-
kicker.
and Greg, if you had written something, they'd say it to you too.
Oh, I wasn't going there. I wasn't going there.
But no.
But now that you mention it.
but when you're right, you're right.
So okay, let's have some fun. Is it? I'm gonna freestyle here. Is it possible to actually stream the video through our Facebook Live? Is that possible?
No.
Are we technically advanced? I'm sure we could, but I don't think
No.
we're technically advanced
No.
enough for that yet.
No.
We should work on that for the future.
You should absolutely work on that. I totally agree.
I will work on that.
What we will do, and Brian will do this, is he will embed the video in the show post at redmaryland.com so that you can see it. And really, if you see the screen capture, you're seeing the video.
And quite frankly, we'll probably send them twice as many people who've already seen the video. So-
yeah, looking at the number of views, more than that. And so it's time, and I'll let Brian set up in a second, but it's time. We can't put it off any longer, Brian.
No. So we got hip to this because somebody for some reason decided to post this on our Facebook page on the Facebook event for the Red Maryland Leadership Conference, which, by the way, is January 26, 2019.
Right.
You can go to redmarylandconference.com. It's a DoubleTree Hotel in Annapolis, Maryland. A lot of good stuff. We're working on some big stuff for that, by
We
the
are.
way.
See you
if
there.
we pull this off, you will be impressed with the additions to the lineup, okay?
I will be. It's already an impressive.
Just
lineup.
well, I mean, it is an impressive lineup, but now,
Ooh, I'm
let's
excited. That's exciting.
let's
That's a tease, my friend.
let's take it to Tiger Blood mode.
Well, but and we hope that we can have this conference, despite being exposed by Scott Collier at Dundalk TV.
It says DTV. They say it's Dundalk TV. It really looks like Dork TV, but that's another story.
Now, Brian, be nice.
Am I being a snipe?
You are being a snipe.
Oh, that's a shame. So this
That's
guy.
the moniker that was given him by Pat McDonough.
So,
by the way.
so this video was posted, and it was just your response, and it was posted by some jabron who has no Facebook picture, no Facebook friends. Half convinced it's this guy here,
Right.
trying to cause some shit and make it actually look like people actually pay any attention to it.
We've been exposed. Here, the title of, and we're going to play the whole thing. We're not going to hide. We're not cowards. We're not going to hide. We're going to play this expose video.
Now, just to set
From the good folks at Dundalk TV,
Now, just-
entitled DTV Exposes Al Redmer and Red Maryland About Pat McDonough's Cadillac.
And by the way, just so you know, this video was posted the day after the primary election.
Yes, it was after the primary.
Right.
And I think, Brian,
let me.
I'll read it if you will, but you are welcome to read the all caps summary of a description of what this video is.
Dundalk TV is very surprised that Red Maryland or their friend Al Redmer Jr. or any of Al's high-priced staffers didn't go as far to say that Pat McDonough or his wife had any overdue books from grade school or any outstanding parking tickets, but they certainly came very close. To be fair, I did look into parking tickets, but I mean, grade school, who the hell knows? That was like in the Jurassic era, I think. In addition, I would not be at all surprised if Governor Hogan pays whoever drives his events wagon, more than Pat spent on the Cadillac.
Probably, yeah.
Let's write Pat McDonough in as our next Baltimore County executive.
Okay. So this is what we're dealing with here, and let's just play this.
Let's set the scene first.
Oh no, we
okay?
do have to set the scene.
Let's set
You're
the
right.
scene.
Set the scene.
There's a man.
Yes.
He has
I presume this is Mr. Collier himself.
I presume he's mustachioed with what appears to be a very bad toupee.
Well, not all the hair seems to match or be original.
He has
original equipment.
He's
yes.
wearing a suit with very large shoulder pads. Doesn't look like it fits him all that particularly well.
I mean,
Looks like he might have maybe he lost some weight. Anyway, looks like he's swimming in the suit.
We should all be so lucky.
And he's standing in front of what looks like the bridge, the causeway that connects Baltimore County's mainland across the river to the Key Bridge.
Yeah, the background here is it appears we're assuming Mr. Collier has suited up in a kind of grayish suit with a blue tie and a white shirt, and he's standing in front of this causeway in front of a large mountain of weeds, various native flora. And
native to Dundalk,
and he is recording this video in the open. Some interesting choices that he made artistically to do this, but here we go. Let's just start. And by the way, we're just playing this as it's recorded. We have not changed the audio at all.
As many of our viewers know, we have been exposing many political figures who have been doing things that we consider wrong over the past couple of years. We've also brought out some...
By the way, this video cuts about 48 times. So you're hearing the audio and it sounds crisp.
It's heavily edited.
But it is heavily edited. So I don't know.
I think you can hear the edits. And by the way...
And I don't know if it's because basically he seems like he did it at a bus stop or that, he has basically...
It does sound like a bus stop. If you listen to the video, you get all the sounds of nature and a busy, bustling highway very nearby. A lot of ambient noise. Not sure why that's relevant to any of this, but again, artistic choices that were made. They've been exposing things that were wrong. We're coming out of a jump cut here. We'll continue, Mr. Collier, please.
Things that have been wrong in the press in the past. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Al Redmer and how he has...
He sounds like he's standing behind a jet engine.
been beating on Pat McDonough after an article was published in Red Maryland.
He beat Pat McDonough in the election, that's for damn sure.
And just to give you some context, because I have the article right here, the article was written February 17, 2018.
So it took him 4 months to get around to this, by the way.
Right. It's been up for a while. Inside the world of Pat McDonough, maybe we'll put a link on the show page, but this took him 4 months to get this video after the primary. Remember, he's upset about something Brian wrote and how it was used by the Redmer campaign, and he's writing 4 months later after the primary voting is concluded.
I do believe that there was some kind of agreement between the two of them to do this.
Okay. An agreement between Red Maryland and Al Redmer to do this. So, Brian,
it's funny, Greg.
Would you like to address that?
It's funny because we had talked last week or the week before about how we made it all the way through the campaign without somebody saying that there was some sort of nefarious deal between Red Maryland.
He doesn't accuse us of getting paid. He just says that there's some sort of agreement.
Well, come on. The implication is there.
I think now is the time for you to admit and give all the details of your meeting with Secretary Redmer or Administrator Redmer, whatever his title is, and fess up. Now's the time.
Okay.
You've been exposed, my friend. You've been exposed.
Here are the details.
Go ahead.
No, that was done.
We never met with Al. We never met with Al. We don't have any agreement with the campaign. I have not even spoken with Al Redmer. Probably in years.
It's been several years since I've spoken to Al. Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe Al knows what I look like. I don't know. And not Hannah and not Zach. Thank you. Sorry, Zach. I'm just blanking. I'm old, much older than you guys are. There's no agreement going on. We have been, and by the way, just go to redmaryland.com, punch in Pat McDonough. You'll see that we have
used Pat McDonough as a punching bag for pretty much our entire existence.
Critical of Delegate McDonough for a long, long time, particularly Brian, who Pat McDonough on his radio show many, many, many years ago, probably a decade ago, practically, referred to Brian as a snipe. Okay, so there was no meeting.
I'm glad
of the
you
minds.
listened to that to remember that because nobody else was.
I do remember that, and this is there was no agreement. There didn't have to be, and what Brian wrote about, and we'll hear more about as we get into it. He wrote about a lot of things in this campaign, and we were critical of Pat McDonough as a candidate before Al Redmer ever got into the race.
Right.
So there's 100% no evidence that we had any sort of agreement. There was no agreement. There was no quid pro quo. They didn't even have to ask. We were happy to criticize Pat McDonough.
Some might call what he's saying in this entire video bullshit.
By the way, here's the big title card. Welcome to Dundalk TV.
Al seems to be wrapping a lot of his campaign around this bashing of Pat McDonough.
The campaign he already won
Yeah.
by the time this video was posted.
Right, and by the
the
way,
election is over. Your guy lost. Good God, man.
yeah, and by the way, Pat McDonough wrapped a lot of his campaign around bashing Al. I mean, that's the race it was. They went after each other toe to toe. So
It's the
talking about his Cadillac and how Al feels that Pat McDonough is screwing his supporters by having this vehicle.
Actually, hold on. I said he was screwing his supporters. I'm not sure Al Redmer said anything about screwing his supporters. I said that Pat McDonough was taking advantage of his supporters by having them fund his Cadillac.
right.
By the way,
you wrote about this.
it
Let's
would-
keep going because he's going to talk
this
about
guy's like the
torture
king.
reform.
This video will be 2 minutes shorter if he didn't pregnant pause every 3 words.
Yeah, let's roll a little bit through because he's going to talk more. He's very upset about this issue with the Cadillac. We'll put it in context. We'll break it down. Here we go.
Close to the campaign, and if I wasn't, I might believe some of the BS.
He's very close to the McDonough camp. Remember, we're in cahoots. He's some sort of objective journalist who happens to be very close to the campaign. Now, if you look at some of the other videos he has, it's him and Pat in Pat's district office. Okay?
Yeah.
He's a buddy with Pat McDonough. That's
Yeah.
what it is. I mean, there's nothing wrong
Ironically,
with that.
he's a lot tighter with Pat McDonough than we are with anybody
Right.
involved with the Redmer campaign. But that would require some sort of objectivity or honesty
Right.
that people in Pat McDonough's orbit
he's
are
close enough-
completely incapable
Right.
of.
He's close enough to the campaign to get their talking points. That's fine.
that Al
Look at his
Redmer
brown
has put
nose
out.
brown.
Al has
Wow, that was like 3 hard cuts in a row.
That's
That
what
doesn't-
she said.
You have to watch this video, folks.
been sending out mailers and even has a commercial out now.
Oh my God, he's trying to win the
saying
election.
how Pat has this SUV, a Cadillac, and is just doing his supporters wrong. So,
He had the
Jump
jump cut
cuts.
in the middle of that sentence.
Wow.
so
Hey, you
why
know,
don't we
Greg,
take a
hold
closer
on.
look?
That's John Fernay says that we got a lot of balls for doing this live.
Yeah.
So maybe this is what he's talking about.
Maybe you just do the whole sentence again and make that the edit and do it that way.
Look at the article now, and the viewers can decide for themselves. So in
This
the
is my
article,
favorite part right here. So he decides
cuts-
he's
What's so great, and I'll let you say what you want to say, is when he's quoting from Brian's article, he cuts, and like magic, he has a laptop in his hand that he's reading from.
not reading from paper, not reading from his phone, but he's trying to juggle a laptop and talk to the camera at the same time.
And it just appears and disappears from the shot like magic. It's fantastic.
Couldn't this dude get like a tablet or something that makes it not look
Yeah,
like
like a hard copy printout. at least,
Just
right?
something that doesn't make you look like just an absolute goober. Looks like he's trying to diagnose a Hyundai. I mean, that's what it looks like he's doing here.
Anyway, Mr. Collier is going to now read from a portion of Brian's article, Inside the World of Pat McDonough, from February 17, 2018.
It says that Pat had made an initial payment of $4,387.15. And total, McDonough's campaign pays out $6,361.60 to GM. That's 14% of his total campaign expenditures. Well, I'd like to remind...
Okay. Now, keep in mind, he read that. That is what Brian wrote, and now he exposes us. Listen to us being exposed in the nefarious lying that we're doing.
Now that he is being endorsed by Governor Hogan, and Governor Hogan has an events wagon that we looked into. And
we looked into it. It was parked at McDonald's.
By the way, what has just blown by you, and you may have missed in all the background noise and stuff, is that he basically admits every fact that Brian wrote with regard to Cadillac is true.
Yeah.
And, of course, he would have to admit that because Brian quoted it directly from the campaign finance report that Pat McDonough signed under oath as being correct, and Brian put the campaign finance, it was a publicly available document, in the piece. So we've been exposed for writing things that were true. Now,
and providing evidence.
Now, having written things that were true and proven with, like evidence, now he's trying to spin it to say it's not that big a deal, which is certainly his right to do, but hardly exposing us. But this is his explanation. It's a wonderful example of what's called whataboutism.
And from what we researched, it says that the governor owns that vehicle, and his campaign is paying him $680 a month for that vehicle. Now, I've been to Governor Hogan's events, and they've been paid events, so I consider myself a supporter, and I do support the governor and lieutenant governor as being reelected.
And there, hold on.
Letting off. He's literally at a bus station.
Yes, he's at a bus station.
You can hear the bus. I hope he catches the bus he needs to get back home.
It would have been
insane.
It would have been funnier if there was a jump cut to him having to ride the bus home because he doesn't have a car of his own. That would have been hilarious.
Here's the point that he's making. All of you are, I'm sure, are familiar with the fact that the governor has an RV that he's had ever since his first, since he started running 4 years ago, which is painted for the Hogan for governor. We talked about it.
It is for campaign use. It's not his running around vehicle like Pat McDonough's Cadillac.
Right. He does own it. Is one of those things. Remember, the governor contributed $400,000 of his own money to his campaign when he started, something that Pat McDonough has never done. And so he does
that would require
own that.
Pat to
and
have a job.
There's a lot of interesting stories behind the fact that the governor owns it, but the point is, a very, very small part of the governor's campaign is paying for this particular RV, which is used exclusively. Believe me, the governor's not jumping in this thing and heading to the beach with Yumi, okay? He's not driving it around town. It's got Hogan on the side of it. I doubt he's ever even actually driven the thing.
I doubt, and no disrespect to the governor, I doubt he's got the license to drive that thing on the highway.
I don't know that you need a special license. Not the point. He's trying to compare this to Pat McDonough spending 14% of his expenditures
on his running around car.
On his Cadillac car that he drives around in. And so argument one is, well, the governor does the same thing. So I'll leave it to you as to whether what the governor does is the same thing as what Pat McDonough does. But this is the explanation.
So I have no problem with the governor having that event vehicle. I understand it.
Sure.
What it's for parades, it's to go to events and let people know the governor's there. It's a very effective way for the governor to let people know that he's out there. Now, with Pat McDonough, on the other hand, Pat chose a cat.
I'm glad he said on the other hand, because it is on the other hand, isn't it? It's not really the same thing, is it?
Now, I do believe he probably chose that to look the part with...
To what?
To look the part.
Oh.
See, the guy can't even... Remember, he made this video. He edited this video.
Yeah.
He wrote this video. The arguments he's making... And by the way, there's a lot of stuff in your article that he does not even address. Okay? Like the stuff with the rent and the office and all that kind of stuff. Completely ignores all of that. So he's cherry-picked what he wants to attack, to expose us on. He starts by saying all the facts we reported were true. Then he tries to say it's no different than what the governor does with his RV, which I don't even have to rebut that. That's kind of ab absurdum on its face, absurdum ab initio. Now he's trying to say, well, let me just have him say it. You figure it out.
With what is going on with his run for county executive.
That he already lost.
Doing the political run myself, actually, you do have to look the part, so I totally understand that. But people that aren't close to Pat's campaign doesn't realize that Pat has that car loaded up with his campaign signs, and then when he goes around to different events, he'll stop and put up signs, or he's dropping off signs. So it's pretty much being used for a truck as well. So it does look good when he goes to events, but he has it full of signs.
Hey, Greg,
and
stop the video. Have you ever trailed a candidate outside to see what they're driving?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's stalkerish behavior if you are, by the way.
I couldn't tell you what they're driving. And every candidate in every race in every part of the state uses their car, especially if they have an SUV, to put signs in it and to do other things, and they aren't paying the payments for their car payments.
Now, many
from
of them,
campaign contributions.
many
not
of
that
them,
it's not. It's legal to do.
Of course, it's legal. I even said it was legal.
Yeah.
And many of them do like reimburse gas.
Sure.
Which, okay, I get that.
Right.
But again, you know, if you're talking about reimbursing the gas on your 1998 Honda Civic because you're running campaign literature back and forth, it's a lot different than having your campaign account pay for the Cadillac that you wouldn't be able to afford otherwise because you don't have a real job and have no useful employable skills.
Right, and the people who gave money, the implication of what we're saying is, and remember, these expenditures for the car are 14% of what the campaign is spending. Okay? If Pat McDonough raised millions of dollars and he spent $6,000 on his car, it wouldn't be that big an issue. But this is 14% of all the money that he's brought in, that people have donated, is going to him being able to look the part driving a Cadillac around. So I sure as heck hope he uses it for campaign stuff, even though apparently Mr. Collier doesn't think that's a prerequisite. So the inference is that perhaps he's taking advantage a bit. And I'm not sure this argument is even a good refutation, let alone an expose of our position.
Basically a work vehicle. So, and he's getting a lot of use out of it, and I totally understand that. So it seems like that particular vehicle has the size that he needed and also the style that he wants to be looking as he's running for Baltimore County Executive.
You have to be
for him.
You have to be a mental midget to buy this argument.
Well, look. He's trying his best to spin for his guy after the election.
After the election's over.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. But again, the whole purpose of this is to expose our lies. Okay, I don't think the conclusion that we inferred or that Brian inferred that perhaps this was a misuse or taking advantage is any less plausible. In fact, far more plausible than the explanation you were just given.
I don't see what the problem is, and anybody that's out there that believes that Pat has been trying to do anything devious to his supporters, I hope that now you understand that that is totally incorrect and that Red Maryland has been deceiving you, and so has Al Redmer.
Pause it for a second. I just admitted everything they said was true, but they're deceiving you.
Okay. We were
and
deceiving
actually,
you. He got us. If you're listening to this, you know we were deceiving you. So I'll just leave it at that. Got us dead to rights.
His mailers, with his commercials, and I expect that he's going to go full blast on having radio ads.
Yeah,
and
he's going to go full blast on radio ads for the primary he already won.
Yeah, we're not making this up. This posted after the primary.
Yeah.
Also doing more TV commercials. He's going to be pounding that point. Now, I hope that I've clarified that. In addition, Red Maryland went into Pat McDonough's congressional run.
There were 4 cuts in that sentence.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're changing gears now. Brian also wrote about Pat McDonough's previous run for Congress.
And it says the most
Laptop's back.
Laptop magically appears. Reading again from Brian's article from February, 4 months prior to this video.
Serious expenditure in his federal account was $6,000 to his wife, Valerie McDonough, for consulting staff computer. And I can
He had to. He couldn't remember that last word. He had to look back. Didn't jump cut that though.
Yeah. Okay.
tell you that I have never seen any woman.
Computer disappeared. Now, here's what we're saying. Here's what Brian is saying. Pat McDonough paid his wife through his congressional campaign account. Again, legal.
Legal.
Pat could have paid himself if he wanted.
By the way, Pat McDonough, not the only candidate we've called out for this in the past.
Yeah. The point is, every spouse of every candidate does crap to help their candidate. The good ones do a lot more. I know good candidates, some of whom we mentioned one, who their spouses are de facto campaign managers for them. They don't pay them out of their campaign accounts.
Yeah.
They wouldn't view that as proper. It is legal, but it is frowned upon. It is not. And when you're running a campaign like Pat McDonough was for Congress, you know, where he's being horribly outspent, it seems a bit sordid. And look, and Brian's absolutely right. We've given other candidates a hard time for paying themselves. We did it. Charles Lawler comes to mind. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, Charles Lawler made some bank on that.
The
campaign.
point of you running for Congress is not to, gain compensation. Now, what we're going to hear is that she deserved every penny, and given the work she did, it was a trivial amount, even though it was $6,000 in the aggregate.
Work harder on one of their husband's campaigns than Valerie McDonough. She is a tireless worker who also does many great things for the community. So,
Which I don't know why that's relevant.
It's not.
So she's the greatest candidate's wife who ever lived. She deserved every penny.
she is Pat's assistant and also is a liaison between the people in the community and also with Pat doing his work as the representative for his district. It's amazing what Valerie does
Which, by
add
the
to
way,
the camp.
Is not related at all to running for Congress.
Right. He does have paid staff for that stuff.
Campaign, and what Pat had calculated that Valerie made $1.12 during his congressional.
He cut per hour. I think he meant to say she was making $1.12 per hour.
I was saying because the campaign finance report clearly showed she made $6,000, not $1.12.
Yeah, that was overzealous editing. We're giving the benefit. Which, by the way, I mean, are you violating minimum wage laws at that point? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Run to come up with that $6,000. So, not knowing that information, that might look really bad. But once you know.
So now that you know that, does it not look bad? At least he admits it looks bad without that information.
Right.
So Brian's implication was at least reasonable on the surface. Now that he's filled in the picture and exposed our lies, I'm sure you realize how terrible people we are.
The facts, then it's a whole totally different story.
There you go.
And that's it. That's no finish, no conclusion. Just cut to green. Subscribe to our stuff.
And by the way, Brian also wrote about a cell phone that he was paying for. He also wrote about
restaurant and dinner charges,
campaign
and
violations,
Barnes and Noble memberships.
This nonsense with his office space that he ended up walking back. I mean, so anyway. So that's it. We've been exposed, and Scott Collier and the folks at Dundalk too. So we're just gonna wrap it up. I mean, we're done, right?
Here's what I got to say, and then we'll wrap up the show, okay? It shouldn't surprise you, and Greg, I know it doesn't surprise you.
I bet it doesn't.
That the typical dead-enders, Facebook warriors, losers that gravitate to Pat McDonough have a sad. They probably should have worked a little harder for their candidate and not blame the messenger, and maybe find a candidate who's not milking them for everything they're worth to fund his lifestyle. If people want to watch Dork TV and his toupee, whatever, that's fine. There's room in the space for them, okay?
Sure.
But know that there's a reason why people have heard of Red Maryland and not Dundalk TV. End of sermon.
That was the untempered version. Look, Mr. Collier, look, you're advocating for your your candidate, that's fine. We've been doing this for a long time. This is the third primary election cycle we've been in. When we support somebody in a Republican primary, the folks who support the other guy get really mad at us, and they say, frankly, much worse and have said it much more effectively,
and
negative things
coherently
about us than you did in this video. The number one thing that you acknowledge, because you later tried to troll our Facebook page and leave some messages and challenges to a debate and all this kind of stuff and say that we're cowards or whatever else.
People with no profile picture, no friends, random Facebook keyboard warriors who've never done anything with their sad and pathetic lives.
We've played your video. We've rebutted your arguments. We're not going to let you promote yourself on our page, but we're going to share your video. We're going to let people make up their own minds. And, I think everything that we wrote was true. Every fact that we wrote was factually true. You tried to argue that somehow we acted unethically, yet I don't know what we did that was unethical. When you report the facts correctly, the fact that you make some sort of inference that you might disagree with or that you think is unfair does not make it unethical. It just means you disagree. You think Pat McDonough, you think Pat McDonough paying his wife $6,000 when he runs for Congress because she's the greatest woman ever and does a lot of work, which every candidate could say in every race, fine. Okay? The fact that we kind of see that as questionable is not unethical, even if you disagree with us, even if other people disagree with that conclusion. The fact that he's paying all this money so that he can drive around in a Cadillac, which he may be using for campaign purposes, but not exclusively, it's not the same as what the governor's doing with the RV. It's not even close.
And they know that.
And it's, Pat McDonough has been running this for a long time. He's been getting people to buy his shtick so that he can get his name out there, so that he can buy time on the radio, so they can buy time on the TV. He doesn't actually accomplish anything. He's never been able to win an election outside of these delegate races that he ran for in that district. He is a charlatan, and we've been saying it for years. He is ineffective, and it's sad that decent people, and you seem like a decent guy, get buy into his shtick because, he's driving around on a Cadillac and paying his wife and paying his cell phone bills and going out on nice dinners because, people donating to his campaign. What he ought to be doing is going out, earning a living like everybody else has to do. And, maybe while he was in the legislature, instead of saying bombastic things and jumping in front of cameras, he actually could have solved some of these problems, which his reputation is that he never did any of those things. And for you to, and look, he attacked Al Redmer. He said things about Al Redmer that were factually untrue. He made inferences. It's a campaign. That's what happens. Elbows were sharp. He took his best shot. He lost. I think Al Redmer is going to be a great county executive in Baltimore County, and I would hope the people who supported Pat McDonough would rather have Al Redmer than Johnny O or Jim Brochin. But if not, and you think Pat McDonough should be able to pay for his Cadillac out of campaign proceeds rather than, and you're so butthurt that someone suggested otherwise that you're going to let the Democrats win the county executive race, that's on you.
Yeah, that's self-defeating.
That's on you.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope that Mr. Collier and anybody who's listening to what he's saying would share what we said, just as we shared what your video on our page, and have a little bit broader view. Look, the race is over. Okay, Pat McDonough gave his best shot. He lost. Now it's time to get together and work together. And you say you support the governor. Okay, maybe Al Redmer, you got some hard feelings. Support the governor. Support some other candidate. Go help Rick Impalaria get reelected if you want.
Yeah.
But channel it into something more positive than, fake videos that you're exposing us when, in fact, you're saying everything we said was true.
Right. Greg, why don't we wrap it up, this
I think we
special
should.
Monday edition of Red Maryland Radio.
Yeah.
Thursday, there'll be another episode Thursday, by the way.
Brian is flying
so
solo.
I'll fly solo on
otherwise
Thursday. But we will, we talked about the past today. We're going to talk about the future on Thursday.
Oh, look at that.
Kind of where we go, from
Look at
here
that.
with
We
the
don't need me for
primaries.
that.
And of course, we have a whole number of shows here on Red Maryland Radio. Theoretically, we have a show on Tuesdays called The Conservative Refuge, but that doesn't seem like it's on its way back anytime soon. Is it, Greg?
Nope.
Yeah, you should do one. You should do one tomorrow. You should do one tomorrow. Do a show tomorrow, Greg.
I will give it due consideration.
Yeah, he's not going to do a show tomorrow.
If 5 people say they want me to do that show, I will seriously consider doing it. So far, it's 1.
That's 2, and actually, I think that counts for 4, so that's 5.
That's
Yeah. See what I did there?
yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Thursdays, of course, Red Maryland Radio is our usual day. Summer schedule's going to be a little off. We're going to be doing some Wednesday, Thursday type deals. So stick with us, follow the schedule. I think Election Focus is done for the year. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, we'll give it some thought. Yes, it was focused towards the primary, but we'll consider whether going forward we need to interview some folks.
And the air raid on Sunday night. Before
Good one this week.
Thank you. We'll take a bit of a hiatus here in a couple of weeks while I'm on vacation, but
Oh, well, you deserve a vacation.
I do deserve a vacation.
But
But
you
you
stay
can
out of Canada. We got enough problems.
like I said, like I told you off air, the only foreign country I'm going to on my vacation is Texas. So be sure to subscribe to the Red Maryland.
So when they secede while you're there, we'll know you were on a secret diplomatic mission.
Be sure to subscribe to Red Maryland Network program on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, the TuneIn Radio app, and Google Play. And, of course, you can follow Red Maryland Radio broadcast on Facebook Live, facebook.com/Red Maryland, which you should like anyway. You should also follow us on Instagram at Red Maryland, Twitter at Red Maryland. You are the force multiplier. Invite your friends, colleagues, neighbors, religious co-religionists, whatever, to like our stuff, share our stuff. Many of you shared our video tonight on this week's show. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Go to home base for all things Red Maryland, redmaryland.com. We got more to come, folks. We got a long way to go between now and November, the most important election of our lives, and redmaryland.com is the home base for all of that. Click on support us. You can figure out how to support us financially, links to subscribe to the podcast. We have a link to our Amazon link. You can make your purchase through the Amazon link. A portion of that purchase comes back to Red Maryland, help us grow and enhance the network. You can also buy Red Maryland swag at Zazzle.com/Red Maryland, and you can donate directly to us at PayPal.me/Red Maryland. The Red Maryland Leadership Conference is January 26, 2019 at the DoubleTree Hotel in Annapolis. Super early bird tickets end on Independence Day night. You can get in for $25 right now if you go to redmarylandconference.com and buy your tickets today. And, of course, you can email us at any time. redmaryland@gmail.com is how you do that. Red Maryland Talkback line, 410-205-4875.
What's that number?
410-205-4875. We will feature your comments in a future Red Maryland Network program. Greg, final thoughts?
Good show. Let's wind it up. Thanks for listening. If you made it this far, God bless you.
God bless you all real good. For everybody here at the network, thank you very much for listening. For Greg Klein, I am Brian Gertis. You have been listening to Red Maryland Radio and the Red Maryland Network.
Oh, radio.